Glad to be with you this morning. Our portion is Kedoshim and what are we, Eitz Chaim? And Eitz Chaim, it's 693. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitzanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Okay, so this week's Torah portion, Kedoshim, first of all, I have to say it very much repeats, sometimes in almost identical language, things that we learned last week in Achrei Mot. And much of this also has already appeared in Shmot, in Exodus. So it's a funny kind of Torah portion this way, in that it doesn't say a whole lot new. There are a couple of things I think we really need to talk about, and so we will. But it does repeat an awful lot, and you can kind of ask yourself, in terms of sort of the redactional process of the whole thing, why we have this kind of repetition here. This is also, it was pointed out to me, the very middle of the Torah. So some people figure this is the most important parasha. Everything before is leading up to it, and everything after is leading away from it. So maybe or maybe not. But this is certainly telling us that we ought to be a holy people. Let me start, and then we can go around and see if anybody else wants to read, but at least I want to get us started here. So the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to the whole Israelite community and say to them, and that's a heading we've seen a lot. I have to ask you about the grammar here. So you will be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy, right? Kedoshim tihiyu.
Does this mean? You're not there yet. You're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
You do all these things in order to become holy.
Right. So if you read this carefully, I think the message is we're not a holy people yet.
And we still aren't. We still haven't.
Well,
made
that's another.
we still haven't made it.
Yeah, that's another story.
But we were told that the Jews come Torah from way before,
Right.
so it's sort of not a contradiction, but
Well, that's what I'm thinking too. Weren't we a holy people since Abraham at any rate? Since the Hebrews, we were in Egypt, we were delivered with all these various miracles.
people.
All right. Well, I'm gonna say that one was
Good morning.
Kadosh and Taste of Abraham is separate.
Okay.
Kadosh here is holy.
Holy meaning,
Separate, maybe, different.
God-fearing, I don't know.
so no,
In unity with God, how's that?
what is holy? We're holy.
I don't
What
really
does that
know.
mean?
I'm just trying to say that it's the same Hebrew word. I think it has different meanings.
No, you may be right. So if we're brought out of Egypt, all these miracles, we go to Sinai, we get the covenant, we build the tabernacle, blah, blah, blah. And now we're said, well, you will be holy. Like, what were we before? Right?
We have to behave a certain way.
Okay. So we're not a holy people yet. We have holiness potential.
In any way,
That's
does that
my issue.
imply judgments by others, people who see us as an or
Lagoyim?
Goyim?
Yeah.
And every time I see a Jew publicly criticized for doing terrible things, that bothers me.
Right. Right, we all go through that. But I'm just struck by this being in the kind of the future. You will be a holy people. Does that mean you're not holy yet, or you're kind of on the path? And what you ask is, have we ever gotten there yet? Right?
For moments.
So, I mean, holiness is
In the English,
Oh.
it says, in my translation, it says, you shall be a holy people.
right, yeah.
Is it sort of like a resolution, a goal, rather than a statement? It's sort of like
Right.
your aspiration.
I mean, you raise a really good point because in English, you could say you shall be a holy people or you will be a holy people. Right? If you say you will be a holy people, it implies you're not yet. You shall be a holy people is almost like a command or an imperative.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's,
Something British.
also, there's a footnote number 2 on the same page. The Hebrew is quite emphatic, 'cause I was thinking of that too. Must be holy. So it's a command, it's a commandment. And also, you know,
Like one of the 10 commandments, you shall.
and also the fact that not only is it emphatic, but yet it's interesting. God, we can't see him. I mean, he's
No,
still
we can't see.
way above us. And it's interesting that he wants us to be like him, but not him.
Right. And yeah,
What I said before is you wanted us to be in unity with him. You know, that there's,
right,
that you both have to act. He has to act, we have to act.
right.
And I purposely use the word unity because that's the way I like to interpret the Shema. He's a unity.
He's a unity, right.
He's not one, he's a unity.
So anyway, I just,
With us.
Another
I
kind
mean,
of question. If God made man in his image, did he make man holy?
and that is a good question. That's a full, right.
Yeah, but that would mean that everybody who isn't Jewish is also holy.
Of course. Right. It's like Chabad, right? Everybody is either Chabad or potentially Chabad. Everybody's either Jewish or potentially Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Maimonides, I think, kind of sort of has an answer, which is by being in the divine image, we have the potential to be holy and to be like God. We can never be like God, but we have the potentiality that, you know, animals and plants and rocks don't. But it's an image of God. It's not God. And if you like that, blame Maimonides.
I want to will, to me, somebody says you will be something means you'll get there.
Yeah.
You will be a parent, you'll be a student, you will be. No matter what you do, you're gonna get there. But shall means it's more like upon you to get there.
Yeah, it's more of an imperative. You should do this.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
I
giving you all this
absolutely
stuff.
accept that,
Uh-huh.
but just for the sake of argument, if we're looking at this more from a British point of view, shall and will are just alternatives for the same thing.
Well, shall and will actually, if I remember my 6th grade grammar correctly, actually has slightly different meanings. I don't know about.
Yeah, but we're Americans.
Oh, it's true.
Can I break in here?
Of course.
I see it as kind of a duality that in our creation, we do have some holiness and yet we're not fully there. I mean, our life is sacred, our being is sacred, that of the elephants and the aardvarks is sacred. But yet there is something further, and there's something further we must aspire to.
Okay. By the way, are you saying being sacred and being holy is the same thing?
I guess I've been using them interchangeably, but yeah, but it's sort of like something inherent in the end, something we have to work on.
Right. And maybe that's what it's telling us.
Is there a difference between
Good question.
but both of them are the same word in Hebrew, right?
What was the word you said?
Yeah,
Sacred and holy, it's kadosh.
Yes.
I tend to think of things as sacred, like the altar, and the people as holy, but that's,
Yeah. Sacred.
All the holy.
The nuns of someone are dedicated. I think they call them sacred. But they're thought of as objects.
In the Hebrew, tehillah
I'm not sure that there's a distinction between will and shall in Hebrew.
You're right, there isn't. So which makes the English translation interesting because we can make the distinction, so you have to make a choice. So if you say you shall as opposed to you will, that's not the Hebrew, that's, the translating.
And I don't want to get off the subject, but as we
Right.
speak about this, the word potential stands out to me and kind of reminds me of those who would argue for abortion, apart from rape or incest, et cetera. Are we killing potential, and how important is potential?
Right. So that may answer Nelson's question a little bit also. We're like God in terms of having that potential. God actualizes it, we don't yet, maybe. Kind of.
Peter, would it have to do with we're all born with that spark? And that maybe our job is to ignite that spark during our lifetime.
Right, and that's the Chabad answer, right?
Oh.
So we all,
What's the Chabad?
Definitely not a potential Chabad.
Yeah.
well, don't
Sorry,
say,
you're talking.
you never know, you never know. That we all have the Jewish spark in us, the potential.
Yeah.
And the point of Chabad or what is to not ignite that spark, but to bring that spark out. So it's why they say there's Chabad and there's potential Chabad. Everybody has that spark. We just need to find it and bring it out. Something like that. Okay, well, I just wanted to, I think we need to keep in mind this whole question because the laws that follow presumably define what we shall do in order to become holy. And then I think we need to, so why these things and not some other things? Okay. I should say on one more note, and then we can start reading through this. So you shall each revere his mother and his father and keep my Sabbaths. Sound like two different things.
Yeah, yeah.
This is one of my favorite commandments. I keep telling my kids, revere your parents, right? But again, I think there's a choice here when it says yirah. Are the kids supposed to fear their parents? Hold their parents in awe? Respect their parents?
But isn't the definition,
It's the same problem.
shelter, food? I mean, aren't there like within the commandment to revere your parents, isn't it to shelter them, feed them,
Both revere.
and clothe them or something?
That's the ketubah.
Why can't it be both fear and revere?
It can be. I would rather my kids revere me or stand in awe of me than fear me. And I've done some work with juvenile court, and there are families where the kids fear the parents. Right? That usually doesn't work out well.
They may revere you, but fear that you might discover something they're doing that you don't approve of. And you're the ideal example.
That's called teenage.
What?
Teenager.
I don't think it's just teenagers.
No, but I mean, yeah, they're,
Is there another word for tira in Hebrew that would?
well, you could use pachad, but that really means be afraid. Kavod, you could use kavod.
Tira is phenomenal.
It feels like the closest English is awe, but maybe it's not enough.
Well, I mean, I'm just kind of wondering exactly what do we want of our kids to hold us in awe? To fear us, to honor us, yeah, I can get that part too. Respect, okay.
Respect our opinions, respect our.
If we connect it with Yirat Shamayim, then maybe the idea is, I mean, it usually is translated awe, and I get that, but maybe the idea is more respect or respect without absolute familiarity, if you will. In other words, your parents have experience. I keep telling this to my son, just like my dad told me. And it worked just about as well. But one's parents or oneself after a while have experience that the child doesn't have. In theory, the child is supposed to respect that or be in awe of it or what have you. In practice, not so much. Maybe that's why it's a commandment.
Well, I can tell you the good news is that once your kids grow up, as soon as they become parents, it's like, oh.
Yeah, I think that's.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
The comment at the bottom. It says to revere is, again, you don't publicly challenge them and you don't sit in their chair.
It's in the
Yeah, don't sit in your chair is a big one. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, my husband used to say, his father's chair was empty. We were in Baltimore, they moved when we didn't know which was where the chair was. But in the house, that was one thing that he held to,
Yeah.
in other ways, or,
The
liberal.
problem with don't sit in the chair, though, is it just becomes another one of these things that's a ritual. Without, and if it lacks meaning, if it doesn't mean you're not sitting in the chair out of respect, it's just, well, we don't sit in the chair. Why not? Because we don't.
Right.
It loses meaning.
And if you give them another, there is, what happens at a picnic? Where there is, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I view this on a more extended level in that God chose this person, these people to be my parents for some reason or other, so that God is part of this partnership or a group. God, parents, and us, a child. My father was 25 years older than my mother, 25 years older. I'm the product of that relationship. I think that was for some reason that I can't explain.
Okay, so anyway, just to move on, so you shall revere, it's as good a word as any, mother and father, and keep my Sabbaths. It's just like, this is an abbreviated version of the Ten Commandments, right? I am the Lord. Very kind of great.
Kept together.
Yeah, interesting. Why are?
Well, okay, we can ask this, why, you honor your mother and father and don't murder, right? Why?
That's the wrong one. Keep the Sabbath.
The case.
That's a good one.
Don't murder your parents.
The power of the month?
No, the most powerful commandments, right?
Ah,
The most important commandments. Honor your mother and father, keep the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Is
right. Or, yeah,
Honoring God, acknowledging God. You would think that,
That's not.
well, one of the versions with the Ten Commandments, I forgot who it is. Oh, I forgot his last name. Is that this was a
Paul
contract,
Johnson?
pardon me?
Go ahead, never mind.
The first three commandments are basically an introduction to a patent.
Right.
So in which case, I guess it doesn't matter, he's just introducing himself.
They're actually proximate in the Ten Commandments, just as they're proximate here,
Right.
which begs the question, what do we make of them being proximate to one another?
Right.
Uh-huh.
Well, what I was gonna, you're gonna say something, You mean the beginning of this or the beginning of the session? Correct. Right.
This, the first verse speaks to the whole Israelite community and say to the Lord, you shall be Lord, for I am the Lord your God. So this, the interesting, the irony here is this, the Levitical, this is the Torah Kohanim, right? It's the priests that are coming forth with the priests who were the elites. You had Aaron and his family and, and this thing of embracing the whole community is a new term. This is an important part of understanding this text here.
Right. Well, I mean, another way of reading this is it's a metaphor, right? When it says be in awe, revere your mother and father, it means remember you're part of a community and you should honor the community and keep the Sabbath and their holy times. In other words, these are like metaphors or similes, right? It's not your mother and father and Sabbath, it's your community, your family, your people, and the holy times.
Right, but what the point I'm making is that, you got priests that are basically an elite class, right? And now, they're saying everyone is holy, so it's sort of like a democratization of holiness here, coming from the priest, which is, it's amazing in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if this means anything or not, but aren't these lines 3 and 4, aren't they? I mean, there are three of the 10 commandments, but they're in reverse order.
That's also true. Yeah.
Right, yeah, 3 and 4 are this, like the first few commandments, but they're now in reverse order.
Right. But what I'm thinking about 3 is you're keeping the Sabbath, I mean, I'm misinterpreting probably purposely. You're keeping the Sabbath day because your parents kept it.
Well, isn't that kind of how it operates?
I know, but that's why they're together. Because your parents did it, you'd have to do it.
Yeah.
But their parents didn't do it.
Right.
Can you revere the Lord and love the Lord without revering your parents? Isn't that the way, the first step? You have to respect and revere your parents in order to eventually love the Lord.
Well, to a child, the parents are God on earth.
Right.
And we do say of God Avinu.
That's right.
The ultimate parent, if you will.
Also, Peter, why do they use, now why does, maybe it's this, the translation in this edition. They use the word revere, and I
Yeah.
just checked Yitro, and it says honor your parents, in the 10 Commandments.
Different word.
So it's interesting that they use a different,
Right.
at least English verb in
In a different
Hiroshima.
order also, which Rabbi.
Is it the same word?
Right, but in Hebrew, it's,
It's trying to make it, more pleasing to read.
yeah, but although here, the word is yirah, whereas in the 10 Commandments, it's kavod.
Oh, it is.
Is honor, yeah, so it's a different.
It is a different word in Hebrew.
Yeah.
It's different.
That's interesting.
And in
I
the
can
10
understand
Commandments,
honoring your
father
parents.
and mother, and here it says mother and father. That's
So a
the
different
the
verb
rabbis
is
make a
different.
lot of.
Well,
Right.
if you continue on with that these 3 verses are reversed, it makes sense that within the verse, it's also reversed.
Oh, right.
Of
And
course, one thing you could make out of that, if you like, is that it works in both directions. In other words, it's complete, if you will.
So, yeah, I mean, they're right. All right, so we're at verse 5, I think. Well, do not turn to idols or make a molten gods for yourselves. I am the Lord your God.
See, and that one by itself, it's not a couplet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so somebody want to start reading 5? And we can ask why this is here at all.
I'll read it.
Go for it.
When you sacrifice an offering of well-being to the Lord, sacrifice it so that it may be accepted on your behalf. It shall be eaten on the day you sacrifice it, or on the day following, but what is left by the 3rd day must be consumed in fire. If it should be eaten on the 3rd day, it is an offensive thing. It will not be acceptable. And he who eats of it shall bear his guilt, for he has profaned what is sacred to the Lord. That person shall be cut off from his kin.
That's because on the 3rd day, it's
Rotten.
It's rotten and you can get sick.
Well, I'm gonna, one of my questions is gonna be, how many people eat meat that have been sitting out for 3 days, right?
Well, with refrigeration.
No, it's refrigerated.
Well, not for them. Huh?
When they roasted meat, everything was out longer.
Yeah.
But that was.
3 was the limit. See,
Yeah, no, I just don't think anybody did it.
Well, in theory, you could preserve it with salt and cook it very heavily. Absolutely. They talk about salt all the time with the sacrifices. But I think that, I'm just kind of parroting here what one has learned before, but the idea that if it's some kind of, first of all, it should be communal, it shouldn't be just you. Therefore, if you can't finish it yourself, it should be because you shared it. And you should finish it therefore, and don't try to be holding any of it over for yourself.
Right. So this is for shlamim offering. So what they translate as offering of well-being.
Okay.
So this is more personal offering.
Mm-hmm.
This is because they wanted to eat meat. So you brought a shleimim.
Well,
Because there's no other reason to bring it.
well, you don't have to bring a shlamim at all.
What I'm saying.
But you could
So
just,
they wanted to eat meat, they brought a shleimim.
you could just stay at your farmstead and slaughter a goat or
Why couldn't you talk
kill
to
your
her?
dog, kill your dog,
Were
right?
you allowed to do that?
It depends which book you're reading and where you're reading, but the answer is yes and no. I mean, some people would say that certain parts should be interpreted as the only way you could eat meat was to offer a sacrifice, and others will say, on the other hand, people were obviously eating meat in their settlements, not just in Jerusalem, so what was that?
Right.
And we certainly
And
do.
you mean every time you want to eat meat, you have to schlep over to Jerusalem and sit there for 3 days and blah, blah, blah? Or is this only when you bring an offering? Yeah, and you're right. You can read it either way.
Excuse me, but in the beginning, if at the end of the verse 5, it said, "לרצונכם תפתחו."
Yeah,
So it's not for somebody else. It's because of your will you are bringing it, the offering.
right. Right. This isn't the Olah, this is shlamim. So this is a family or kind of thing, not a, yeah. You're right. Why is this here? I mean, we've learned about honoring your family. We've learned about Shabbat. We've learned about don't do idolatry.
Because this is the
And then
holy,
don't eat 3-day-old meat?
this is the holiness code written by the Levites or the Levi'im. And they wanted to make sure you brought them food.
Except this particular sacrifice is the one you're eating when you.
But they got a part of it too, didn't they?
They could have talked about that and they don't here.
This, yeah, the point is to make sure you give the top, the truma to the priests, but that's not the issue here.
Some of these are just like, I would say an explanation or it's not elongation. They're just describing what was in the Ten Commandments. On the next page, when they go, you shall not steal, in other words, they explain what it means.
Okay, so bring us, I am the Lord your God. You need to bring me sacrifices. Well, let me talk about that a little bit. When you bring the sacrifice.
This not leaving the meat over it's actually the beginning of taking care of the poor. Because you would have to invite enough people to eat it. I don't know.
And following up on Sheila's idea, maybe that is somewhat the point. If we're talking about what constitutes holiness, then maybe the only reason this is here is when you're doing this kind of sacrifice where you have to eat it, this is the only way to eat it that's holy or
Right.
separate or elevated or whatever we want.
In
to
other
say
words,
that
when you
means.
bring a shlamim, think ahead. Don't bring a whole cow and expect to eat it in 2 days, right? So
Unless you bring an awful lot of
Just
people
bring the
with you.
hindquarters, right?
think,
Start with this guy.
right, so I'm the Lord your God. You bring offerings. You just can't let a lot of it go to waste because once you bring it as an offering, it's holy, it's kadosh, it's sacred, whatever word we want to use. And you need to treat it as such. Maybe that's what it's saying. And don't just say, I've had enough hamburgers. I'm just gonna throw the rest away.
Maybe not. Maybe there's another answer here. I think it's the Eskimos who bury birds until they rot, and then it's a delicacy. So maybe they've run across a culture that buried meat until it rotted, and then they ate it. And maybe what they're really being told is don't imitate those people.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. It could be.
Particularly since it's saying that the problem is you ate it after the time to eat it,
Right.
on the third day or later theoretically. So, yeah, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
It's hard in general to.
Yeah.
To sacrifice.
Yeah.
Go on, Larry.
Yeah, I was gonna say also, if you're bringing a well-being, okay, you're not obligated. You haven't done anything to be guilty of, okay? But me, people will bring a well-being because something has happened to them that triggers their saying, I'm well-being. There was a plague, there was a problem, there was a sickness. I survived. I didn't get it. Okay? So there has to be a catalyst there. And maybe that's part of being holy, is realizing you have a connection to God. And by your actions, you survived, you stayed healthy.
Right.
Or perhaps you had a good crop or something and you were able to eat sufficiently. So by being holy, it's also making a connection to God and realizing that you aren't the soul.
Right.
You know,
And then if you're doing this for God, do it all the way. Don't halfway through say, you know. You have to bring the shlamim, but then do it correctly
Yeah.
because it's sacred.
But doesn't holiness mean that realizing it's on God? You know, because nowadays, and because of the blessings and everything else, we're thanking God, okay? You're making a connection, realizing that I'm not responsible for all this. God brings the rain, God does this, it's all on God and not upon us. So, you know, so we shouldn't say, this is my handiwork. God enabled me to do this. But to me, the holiness is being a difference and being on a higher level, a connection to God. So yes, there's all the questions of why and everything else. But to me, the question is, why is this here? Because this house, you are holy. You are holy because you are realizing you have a connection to God on a much higher level.
Right.
He's the one who's allowing you to live.
And you have obligations that stretch over time and you can't just, think out after a while.
And all cultures had sacrifice. All these
Right.
pagan cultures did sacrifice, but holiness, as Larry just said, means that we're different. We're apart from the others. So what is different about our sacrifice than, say, the Babylonians or the Assyrians, okay? And then probably the difference is that there was some human sacrifice.
Right.
In those other cultures.
Maybe another-
We just do animals.
Maybe another difference is they did eat it after the second day. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any evidence one way or the other, but that's an interesting point.
I mean,
Because a part of holiness is separateness or differentness.
I want to move on, but I think part of it is if we bring sacrifices, but we need to treat those sacrifices with respect.
Also, historically, did other people sacrifice as an appeasement rather than upon themselves? And because they did it for rain, for this, it was more to appease the gods and to ask for something rather than saying all the sacrifices are because of what I did or what God's doing for me, rather than, in other words, ours is reactive rather than proactive.
Maybe.
I mean, there certainly is this idea that we have anyway, that a lot of pagan sacrifice was about either buying off the gods or bribing the gods or feeding the gods or playing one god off against another god for one's own benefit or what have you. As if that excludes the possibility that there could be any thankfulness in a pagan sacrifice. I don't know if we could really go that far.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is our Western, Judeo-Christian reading. Well,
Yeah.
they're doing it wrong, we're doing it right. But yeah. Then I want to move on.
If the second temple wasn't destroyed, would we be still doing sacrifices today? Or when would
Yes.
that have stopped?
Yeah, well, that's another whole story. Because there was the Babylonian Jewish community that had been there since the exile, which survived all the way down to till Greco-Roman times.
They were still there, that's true.
And they were still there and they were doing a kind of proto-rabbinic Judaism or something, right? Hillel's from that community.
Mhm.
So he's kind of foundation of the Mishnah. They didn't wander into Jerusalem and the temple every day,
No.
right? So they had a non-temple
Probably very
Judaism
early.
What about
somehow.
Alexandria? They
Later
were-
on, Alexandria, I mean, yeah,
At some point, you get far enough away from Jerusalem that it would be awfully hard to get up there 3 times a year, or maybe even once every 10 years, or who knows
or it
what.
might be impossible with border control, whatever. Yes.
Well, I mean, if we're to believe what we're being taught about those ages, if you were a merchant, and many Jews maybe were, and you had a sophisticated enough caravan with enough puffs to protect you, maybe you could make that trip, especially if you had something to sell, but otherwise it was very dangerous, relatively speaking.
Yeah, my Dr. Fatah used to say the best thing that happened to Judaism, well, one of the good things was the destruction of the temple. Because if we had remained a sacrificial religion, we would have disappeared like all the other ancient sacrificial religions.
Maybe so.
And that we were able to make the transition to prayer and blah, 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 is what allowed us to survive. Okay, let's move on to number 9, or to verse 9, if somebody wants to read.
When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not pick your vineyard bare or gather the fallen fruit of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I, the Lord, am your God. Okay,
Everything you do seems to be, I am the Lord your God,
Right.
or I am the Lord. In other words, anything you're getting it from me, I'm teaching you the law, which is also an interesting idea because what they do before. Were they so unsophisticated?
Are they what?
Were they so unsophisticated? I mean,
I think one way maybe to understand this is, again, historically, it seems like this has its cognate in other ancient societies, in various codes that have been discovered. It'll often say, I am King so-and-so, in the same place where it's saying, I am the Lord your God. The difference is, this is God saying it, not some king, or earthly king, if you will. And maybe the other thing that's different about it is, and again, I don't have any evidence of this. If anybody does, I'd love to hear about it. But maybe this is the first time somebody is saying, everybody around you reaps the whole field and goes back and gathers the gleanings and doesn't leave anything. But you've got to take care of the poor because that's kadosh. So one way to do that is the payot, if you will, the corners of the field and the gleanings. And, we see that in root.
Right.
What is root gathering? The gleanings.
Right.
And this is part of our history now. In Genesis, it says we were make us in God's image, right? We're made in God's image and likeness.
Whatever that means, right.
Right,
Mhm.
and here,
That's the beauty.
this is then in Exodus, it's, you'll be my treasured people and I will make you a holy, you'll be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, right? So that everyone is becoming, this is reinforcing this idea that everyone should be holy. And therefore we have to take care of the poor and those that are marginal.
Because they're also holy.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Love your neighbor and
Mhm.
even more incredibly, love the stranger. I mean, it's easy to love
Right.
your neighbor
Mhm.
because he's probably a lot like you, in terms of, ethnic background and so forth.
Right,
But
right.
a stranger,
Right. And I think this is also
In the
saying,
ancient world, nobody loved except maybe the Jews because it's holy, it's different, it's
Right.
above, it's elevated.
do you see a connection between this and what, yeah?
the whole idea of charity. Today, let's put it this way. Stores save their leftovers. And it's like the world is what to do with them. Don't put them in the garbage. Some of them are not garbage. And with more and more things, we're telling the stores are salvageable. Like they used to throw out, I mean, this is what really gets me. I saw them doing this. The salesman for one of the spaghetti, I think Barilla, was in Mark's, picking up every box of spaghetti that was past the sell-by date or close to it. And she said, we know that it's perfectly fine, but they had to take it off the shelves.
Yeah.
And they used to get rid of it, put it in garbage. Now we know you can give it, first of all, the stuff is good for at least 7 years.
A lot of it goes.
In Europe, they use 7
Well,
years.
now it does, yeah.
Seriously, in Europe, the dates on the tuna fish
6 years.
are 10 years. Can of asparagus is 10 years. We have it like 1 or 2 years. And they're writing about it, that this is a
All kinds of.
sell-by doesn't mean that it expires.
Right.
And if you don't have any food,
Right.
it's better than nothing. It's not, there's nothing wrong with it. And to that, you could say that that's like from here. That's
Good, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one way of reading this is kind of the sociological way. We have to take care of the poor and the dispossessed among us because they're also holy. The other, which is more the rabbinic or the Mishnaic view, is you think you grew this crop because you plowed the land and you put in the seeds but God invested in this also. So part of it is God's, and God's saying, for my part, you leave the corner of your fields, you bring tithes, you do whatever. And this teaches you that the growth in the crops or the animals is a partnership between you and God has a right to tell you how to deal with part of it.
And there's implicit in all this too, is the idea of equality. There's a certain and that everyone should not equality in terms of wealth necessarily or power,
Yeah.
but in dignity. The equal, that everyone has, every human being should be given respect and has dignity. And this has had a huge effect on Western civilization. I mean, just think of the Declaration of Independence from Jefferson. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
And yet they.
This, this, I think, is a Judaic idea.
Yeah, some are more evil than others.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah.
The landowners and the whites.
One of the parts, yeah.
No, what he was saying, I'm thinking,
I-
yes, all Ivan, yes, he Ivan. I was thinking every person's needs are the same. They don't have the same, therefore you have to equalize it.
Right.
No, needs are not the basic needs, maybe.
That's what I'm talking about.
I think
We're
that
talking
it's,
about food here.
I think you could equate that more, well, more maybe not is the right word, but at least think about it as if everybody's B'Tselem Elohim, then
Right.
everybody deserves that kind of respect, which is, it occurred to me, maybe because I'm reading War and Peace for whatever that's worth, as
He's got time.
believe me, it takes a long time and I'm a relatively fast reader. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, what's the Russian way of winning the war? Throw bodies at Napoleon until he's defeated. We just keep throwing people at him. Between that and the snow, he'll be defeated. What's the way you defeat Hitler? Same thing if you're Stalin. You throw incredible numbers of people against the Nazis to die.
Well, they're doing the same thing.
And you win the war that way, but that wouldn't seem to be the way we'd want to win the war because every life is precious. And so you don't just say the way we're going to win the war is all these foot soldiers are going to go out there and die, but on the way they'll kill enough people. We may lose 10 million, but they'll still lose the war. It's not the way.
Let's come back here. Because there's one passage I really wanted us to talk about today, and we're kind of running out of
Get there
time.
yet?
We're not there yet. But part of,
You can
I think
skip
what we
to it.
also have here is sort of a rule and midrash, and an explanation. You shall not steal, then it explains, well, don't bear false witness, don't, defraud your fellow, do not commit robbery. I mean, these are all kind of explanations of what does it mean, don't steal or don't, you know. I wanted to turn the page to number 15, especially number 16, because I've had quite a few discussions on this. So you shall not tender an unfair decision, do not favor the poor, interestingly, or show deference to the rich, judge your kinsman fairly, fine. Do not deal harshly with your countrymen. Wait. So what is, 16, do not deal basely with your countrymen. What the Hebrew says is don't go around as a rachil, right? Which is what? Which is what?
רחל means to להוציא דיבה.
You speak false.
To speak,
That's not the translation.
so it's a wrong translation.
Well, yeah, that's the other possibility.
Rechilut is, how do you translate rechilut?
רכילות is saying things
Go-
about
go-
others.
Yeah, but we don't.
Talking behind your back. רכילות is gossip.
It's gossip, but it's negative gossip.
So
Is there
first-
any positive gossip?
it says don't go rachil. The rabbinic tradition has decided that means lashon hara, and therefore we translate it as talebearing. But is that what a rachil is?
No.
So what is a rachil?
It is talebearing. You're telling stories about someone that aren't true necessarily.
You don't know if it.
Although if it's lashon hara, it could be true but still hurtful.
Correct.
Right.
And
For example.
No, seriously,
Yeah.
words, the way you pronounce the words, some words are hard and some words soft. You
No,
can say the same thing, but if you use some word, rechilut sounds like you're banging something into someone, yeah. It's really,
But that's because we think already the rachil means gossip and therefore we translate it that way. Here, they've translated do not deal basely with your fellow.
how would
Which
you
makes it more inscrutable, right?
Yeah.
Hatred,
Sorry?
baseless hatred was one of the reasons for the.
Well, then you say don't hate your neighbor or something like that. It says don't go around as a rachil, and I'm saying, so what does that really mean?
gossip, that's what it's translating, it's basically here.
Right, so we can't gossip at all? What do you all do at Only Shabbat? You gossip, right? That's the whole point. No, but I mean, that's the community building, right?
Thing about.
But you're.
But maybe the point is we're not to go around with a negative attitude, only bringing up bad things or.
Well, it's just you slandering
Right.
somebody.
Right.
You know, then there's three people that are being hurt, right?
Well, that's the rabbinic interpretation that we already assume rachil means da, 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 da. And is there such a thing as good gossip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there such thing as bad gossip, which is true?
Definitely.
By the way, why isn't that good gossip?
Contemporary. The whole business now was the King David, the Menorah Park.
Yeah.
Is it rechilut? The good gossip, bad gossip, they're getting publicity.
That they're getting.
So,
Some people.
So we shouldn't talk about that because that's.
Some people actually say, my husband used to say, that if you're being talked about, it still, it means that you're someone or something that's worthwhile to be against.
don't the rabbis say in a context like you've brought up, that what makes it not lashon hara is that there is a purpose, a good purpose behind it? In other words, if you're calling out somebody for a misbehavior that's affecting the community like that, the idea would be you're calling them out to try to find a way to improve the situation, as opposed to a different situation where perhaps arguably there's nothing, I don't know, I'm stretching it a little bit to keep it at Menorah Park, but or whatever we're calling it these days. But let's say there was actually nothing wrong there. But somebody didn't like the idea that the community sold it just because it should have been a community institution. Then maybe that would be getting into Lashon Hara.
But again, is that what Rachil is? And is there such thing as Lashon Hatov?
I think that it is Rakilu. If it's true, but we don't know that.
If you're praising someone
It's not Rakilu.
and, you know, talking about someone in an elevating way, I mean, that's desirable.
Well, there's rabbinic examples where that's Rachilut, because I'm praising you of what a great guy you are, blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, he's getting jealous.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's right.
there's supposed to be some kind of purpose beyond just the praising them for whatever reason. Maybe you want a favor or whatever. That wouldn't be so great either. What this makes me think of, and this was, I guess, a sermon many years ago, but it still sticks in my head a little bit. This idea that so-and-so isn't in shul. So you should think about that in the most positive way, which is so-and-so isn't in shul, and they usually are. I hope they're well. Has anybody heard from them? What's going on? As opposed to, oh, so-and-so isn't in shul. They probably had to go shopping this morning or whatever negative reason you could come up with. And the idea in the sermon was, how many people, if you think about it, automatically go to the positive perspective as opposed to the negative perspective. And things like this are meant to get you to think about that before you either make an action or a statement that you might regret.
I mean, this whole issue of gossiping, I guess we'll call it, whether that's Rachil or not, I don't think it is, but I don't know. I mean, the Chofetz Chaim in the 1870s wrote a whole book about Lashon HaTov or Lashon Hara, when is the one become the other, then actually wrote 2 books.
One for good and one for bad.
So, I mean, this is a complicated issue just about gossip, because we all gossip. That's how you build a community. Like I say, I think anthropologically, that's why you have an Oneg Shabbat. It's the fellowship, right? And you talk about each other. I'm not sure that's what it means here. Don't go around talking about each other. What?
I'm wondering if it's a separation of the character of the person as opposed to the action of the person. You know, it's a very fine line.
Yeah.
If you're saying, you know, he is rather than he did, you know, what he did may have been something else rather than defaming the person themselves. So you can still say something is action simply because that affects other people or whatever. People will take it how they want to, but you're not directly attacking the person.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to be careful about what you say about other people. I get that, but is that what this is talking about? That's my question.
So what is this talking about?
So that's the second question. And what is it talking about? What should you not be doing, and does the context help? Right?
I think you don't use the name of if you don't use the name of the person, it becomes more neutral. Then you're not accusing someone directly.
I'm not. The point isn't how to do gossip well.
Say something.
Yeah.
Judy wanted.
Judy is
I
trying.
don't know, I looked up, at the bottom, it says do not feel basely. I looked it up in Exodus,
Okay.
and what it says there is, you must not carry false rumors. You shall not join hands with the guilty to act as a malicious witness.
There you go.
So is that what it means? And by the way, that fits into the context a little bit better.
Because we're talking about a court case.
In other words, it's a negative thing.
So don't conspire against other people, right? Because it follows right after it's saying, don't favor the poor, don't show deference to the rich, do not profit by the blood of your fellow, right? In other words, don't do say wrongful things so that you can profit from it. And that's more what you're saying.
Goes on, you shall neither side with the mighty to do wrong. You shall not give perverse testimony in a dispute so as to pervert it in a favor of the mighty.
So in that light, and I think that's an excellent parallel. I mean, thank you for bringing that up. So then how do we translate do not go as a Rachel?
Not just changing the topic of.
Without using body parts.
Sheila said before, it says after every commandment, I am the Lord.
Right.
Which raises the question in my mind of, I mean, this is about being moral, being holy, right? And
What about being holy, not being moral?
can you be moral without believing in a higher power, without believing in God? Can you be ethical without that? Or is it necessary? I mean, is the whole idea of monotheism, a God,
Right.
something that is critical,
An external absolute.
moral.
Right. So I mean, that's Immanuel Kant, right? You don't need God. We can rationally figure out right and wrong.
Right.
No, but you.
But does it work very well when you spread it out over the whole society? This is a
That's
common,
another question.
this is since we're relating this to court cases, this is, I think, a common question in our own judicial system. Because in theory, if you're a witness, you put your hand on the Bible and swear that you're going to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And the concern that gets discussed from time to time is that when that was first instituted, people took it seriously because they were putting their hand on God's book and swearing or affirming with respect to that. And these days, the argument goes, the majority of people may do it because that's what you do when you go into court, but it means zero to them, nothing at all, and they can say whatever they want.
Right.
So.
And that perverts the system.
That's a negative view of.
Maybe our define. Of course, you know, I know you can't make that argument because you've always had wars and genocide and so forth, but is there a relationship to religious belief in a more ethical society which wouldn't engage in war and do horrible things?
Well, I have two questions. So first of all, when you say believe in God, does that mean like Hindus can't be moral? Right?
Well, no, Hindus and Buddhists don't.
Or Buddhists is a better example.
Different religions.
Or you have the Calvinist tradition, which says, you know, whether you're saved or not is purely an arbitrary decision, an arbitrary decision on the part of God, right? You're either elect or not. There's nothing you can do about it one way or the other. If you're elect, it doesn't make any difference what you do. You're elect. You're going to heaven. If you're not elect, it doesn't make any difference how bad you are or good you are. It doesn't make any difference.
No, that's a good case for those who are, you know, not good people, and yet they succeed.
Right. And the Calvinist said, well, either you're chosen or you're not, period.
Yeah, but this is something that's an individual thing. Like, for example, this whole business with, they're changing back, you know, they made the schools get rid of all the Confederate leaders' names,
Right.
and now they're turning back. in some
Well,
places.
Virginia's, yeah.
For whom is Stonewall Jackson
Hero.
a hero? He was a hero for some people. And, I mean, we're gonna have the same thing in Israel. Things settle down, who's a hero and who's
Well, that's a whole.
an enemy, you know?
That's a different question also, because that's how you study history.
Yeah,
Or don't. I mean, if you erase figures in history just because you don't like who they were, you're not learning anything. You're just,
Robert. It's part of our history.
Right.
We learn from our history.
Right.
And he did some honorable things in the end too.
Besides, you have-
He surrendered,
Oh,
we
yeah,
have to
yeah.
talk about it, that's really the point.
So anyway, I wanted, it's 10 o'clock, whatever that means. But anyway, I wanted to.
Go on.
But I did want to bring up this question when it says, don't go as a Rachel to think about, does that just mean gossip? Or does that mean manipulating the system for your benefit, which is more of the context, what as you say, the parallel?
Thank you.
And I think we have maybe a bad translation here. But anyway, all of this is about how we be holy, and I think it's worth thinking, what does that even, how do we become kadosh? And does it play out in big ways or small ways, like leaving the meat overnight? You know, that these details of our life are what's also important.
Like they say.
Oh, it's all relative. All right, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you very much.